Hola a todos. Hello everyone. Today we have this interesting topic which starts as Tulsa Massacre doesn't see color. Apparently, Oklahoma superintendent says, let's no tied to skin color. He says that racism is not to blame for the infamous Tulsa Massacre. And this story, you can find it on the description of this. It was written by Matthew Chapman in rawstory.com, Oklahoma-superintendent. So according to this guy, yes. Let's be clear. According to this human, to call it one way, the Tulsa Massacre, also known as the Tulsa Race Massacre, was not about race. Uh, Cynthia, have you heard about this topic and what do you think about those words? I want to know your point of view.
Yes. Well, I think that one of the good things that we should do before we really get into the discussion is kind of give people a background on the Tulsa Massacre if they are not aware. So, back in 1921, in Tulsa, there was a all-black district named Greenwood District that was actually inhabited with mostly black people. It was called Black Wall Street because this was a self-sustaining community filled with banks, schools, uh, doctors' offices, dentists, shops, you name it. Everything that a township could use in order to be sustainable was there, and also did business with other organizations overseas. Now, one day, back in the day, there was a shoe shine person named Dick Roland who happened to share an elevator with a white woman named Sarah Page. While they were in the elevator, Sarah screamed and then went to the authorities and told them that Dick Roland tried to assault her. Now, this was not true. And the Tulsa police actually went and put him in jail. And then there were white towners in Tulsa that went to the jailhouse and demanded Dick to be handed over to them. They, the actual police in Tulsa, refused. And there were other people, specifically black servicemen, ex-servicemen from World War I, that came to the police station to actually defend Dick. They released Dick. The police released Dick to the black soldiers, but brought him back to Greenwood District, where the township around them in Tulsa, specifically the white township, was extremely angry. They went into Greenwood District and burned it down and murdered over 300 people. In that particular place, people would think that in 9/11, that was the first time that bombs, well, planes were like flown into buildings. That's not true. Planes were actually flown into houses, schools, churches, and other businesses during the Tulsa Massacre. And this was done 100% because of race. So, with that being said, I would love to get you guys' thoughts on Superintendent Walters trying to introduce revisionist history. Aaron, please
Yeah,
share.
this guy really confuses me, and a lot of people that share his views really confuse me. I'm not sure what they're doing or what they're gaining
Mhm.
by trying to omit race from the discussion, especially from an event that is so obviously racially motivated and racially charged. He The day after he made his original comments, he was interviewed by a news station there in Oklahoma, and he kind of walked back what he said and claimed that he always said that the race riot was evil, that it was an abhorrent thing that we should, and that it should be definitely be taught. And then, but then he still is firmly in the camp of not wanting to bring up skin color when talking about it. Um,
Yeah.
I have a hard time talking about this because what are they what are these people trying to avoid? Do they feel guilty and they just can't manage their guilt when they think about it? Do they feel like it's their fault and they just want to avoid any bad
Yeah.
feelings? Do they not want their kids to feel responsible? I mean, obviously you're not responsible for something that
Right.
happened 100 years ago, but it's still something we can learn from. Yeah, I'm just confused by him and a lot of other people that hold the same view where
Well,
they don't want to see
Yeah,
things
go
the
ahead.
way
call
the
me
way
a
they are.
conspirationist if you want, but I'm sure this is closely tied to this idea of the seven mountains that specific Christian groups want to
Mm,
achieve in the USA.
okay.
Among those, you can find politics, you can find education, and this is going to deal directly with education. They want to
Yeah.
change the history of the USA, they want to hide facts that happened, they want to say that things that really happened didn't happen, and this is directly related to the how it's called the changes in education that they are making now. They are stopping anything that could be called quotation mark progressive, such as what is the name? Critical
Critical
race theory. They
theory.
want to
Yeah.
avoid that because how do they dare teaching people what happened in the past? Everything related to sexual education, because how do they dare want to protect their children from abusive pastors?
Hmm.
Everything related to trans rights, because how do they dare to admit that people are people?
Hmm.
But this happens only because somebody asked him, because this guy, what is the name of the guy? The Oklahoma
Walters.
intendant?
Yes, the
Walters,
superintendent
Ryan
Ryan
Walters.
Walters. Hmm.
Thank you, Cynthia. This guy
You're
was
welcome.
talking against, against critical race theory, and somebody asked if talking about, I mean, if removing everything related to skin color would mean that they wouldn't have to talk about the racism that happened in the Black Wall Street massacre of Tulsa. And that's when he said, no, 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 let's not tie to skin color, and this had nothing to do with that. And I think that this guy or lies to the face of people, because they are so sure that they will be able to change the understanding of people from history. Because we have checked in previous episodes, if you're a teacher and you dare to talk about racism and talk against racism, you're going to get fired immediately, right away. And this guy, he's living the future already. He's living his life as if he was a student from nowadays education in the USA, which is creepy. Because he knows that teachers will not be able to tell the truth to the students because they are going to get fired.
Hmm.
Luckily, we are not teachers, and we can actually tell people what happens. We can talk about the many ways how we know that all that happens in Tulsa was based on racism. uh, there is a page called tulsahistory.org. You can go there and you can check a lot of information about what happened there. And this was made by the Tulsa Historical Society Museum. But you can
Hmm.
go to history.com, abcnews.go. I have several. TheGuardian.com has several articles about what happened over there. The Smithsonian, or Smith, it's hard for me to pronounce.
The
Smithsonian
Smithsonian.
Magazine.
Yes. Yes.
Yes, the Smithsonian Magazine,
Yes.
smithsonianmag.com. You can go
Hmm.
there and you can check the history and study on your own, people. Check it. Maybe this guy should follow my advice and should study and stop lying to people on their faces and learn how racial segregation happened back there, how all this was motivated by a lie, as Cynthia said. And the lie, the only thing that did was to spark, the already present hatred towards black people. That's why we have so many things that happen over there. The violence was one-sided. A white mob wielding power and attacking a vulnerable African American community that had no way of defending themselves. And
Well,
after all
I
this
have
violence
to.
happened,
I'm sorry. I do have to chime in because in
oh yeah, please.
actuality, the there was that particular township was full of ex soldiers that were
Really?
in World War I. Yes. Yes,
I had
they
no
were.
idea, and I will have to
Yes,
check my
it was
sources.
full. Yes, it was full of ex soldiers, and they did defend themselves. They did. But the difference was that and this is the reason why we talk about racism being systemic. because the actual police force in that area at that time actually deputized citizens to actually become law enforcement so they could actually take up arms against that township as well. So that's the reason why I know that some people would say that they didn't defend themselves. No, that's not true. They did. They were just overwhelmed because the police, if it was just the police force that tried to quell that particular township only, they would have lost. So that's the reason why they deputized other angry white people in that area, specifically around Greenwood District, in order for them to go ahead and just burn it down. But I wanted to bring up a point, and then Aaron, I wanted you to chime in a bit. That I don't know if any of you, because like Teo, you brought up critical race theory. I don't know if any of you ever heard Marjorie Taylor Greene describe or define critical race theory when she used to be part of the Freedom Caucus on the Hill. Has anybody heard her say what it was?
Oh, I'm sure it was. I'm sure it was something terrible.
Well, Aaron,
Please,
the way that
please correct me.
I don't know about correction, but I will tell you what she said. And I do believe that this is a sentiment that is shared by most of the people that think like her, is that critical race theory actually teaches white children to hate themselves and to feel guilty and to lift black children up. Don't believe me, people? Look it up yourself.
Oh, I believe you.
C-SPAN
Unfortunately,
has all the archives of Congress people when they are in committee and they're doing hearings. And this is exactly what she said. I may be paraphrasing a bit, but this is how she defines critical race theory. But that is not critical race theory. Now, is it, Aaron?
no. Critical race theory is a graduate level area of study.
Mm,
That means you have to go through 4 years in college to get a
mm,
bachelor's degree, and then
mm,
go through for 3 more years to get a master's degree.
mm,
And then, if people like you and you have
mm,
good things to say, then you can start talking to people about critical race theory. And the
mm.
reason why it's become such a buzzword in people's rhetoric nowadays is because that's what people on the right wanted. They want it to be something that gets people up in arms. That critical race theory, it's teaching white people to be ashamed of being white, and that black people are better. No, it's a study of how race affects our society, and how it's built into our systems, of our justice systems, employment, and other things like that.
Mm-hmm.
Because there's no way it doesn't have an impact. 100 years ago, when you have 300 black people die in the Tulsa riot massacre, there's no way that doesn't affect your society. That doesn't affect the people in your society, and your criminal justice system, and all those kinds of things. So no, CRT is not teaching white people to be ashamed of themselves. It's helping us understand our society, why it is the way it is, and what we can do to make it better and more equal for all people.
I do want to point out something because, like, Teo, you did allude to this specifically about the superintendent walking back his comments concerning what he said that the Tulsa Massacre was not about skin color. One of the things that he said is that when he was asked about on Fox 25 specifically, what he said at the previous thing when he was asked specifically, can something like this be taught, or do you denounce that as CRT? He said, I would never tell a kid that because of your race, color, or your skin, gender, or anything like that, you are less of a person or inherently racist. That doesn't mean you don't judge the actions of individuals. Oh, you can absolutely. Historically, you should. That was right. This was wrong. They did this for a reason. But to say it was inherent because of their skin is where I say that is critical race theory. You saying that a race defines a person, I reject that. Teo, when you hear that, what is mulling around in your cartoon brain?
Yeah, I mean, dude, that is what critical race theory is about. It's not saying that because of your color you're different and all of that. It's just explaining what happened in the past and how people were discriminated in the past. So this guy is a walking contradiction? Nah, it's not a walking contradiction. He just lies to the face of people and then tries to excuse himself. Or maybe, okay, let's be fair. Maybe he's just extremely ignorant and has no idea what critical race theory is all about. Just maybe.
So this is the reason why we need to teach history in schools, because obviously we
Exactly.
have a whole superintendent of education in Oklahoma that don't know what the hell he talking about. What you talking about, Walters? What you talking about? And the thing about it is that if I had a chance to sit down with Walters and say, you know what, race and skin color are not completely dichotomous of one another. When race was invented, because this is completely a made up social construct, it has nothing to do with science, biology, or the like. It is completely made up. One of the characteristics was the hue of your skin. And we even have reference to that. I don't know if you all ever heard of the paper bag test. I don't know, Teo, if you've heard of the paper bag test. Have you, Heron?
No,
It
but
sounds
is it
somewhat familiar,
similar
but I couldn't
to?
describe it.
Well, the paper
Is
bag
it similar?
test the paper bag test was that if you were at or darker than the color of a paper bag, that you were not allowed entry into an establishment. That's the paper bag test. So and this happens to be a an outlier. Well, not necessarily an outlier, but it is a product of racism. So to completely divorce yourself from skin color to race, where we even get race from the first place, is completely disingenuous. And I have to say to this particular person that if you are trying to water down or even try to move the goalposts, which is a fallacy, concerning this particular topic, when we're talking about a massacre, and like I said, it was not the only one. America had over almost 200 of them. Then you can't just say that we're just going to divorce skin color or what have you, or even race from this, when in every instance of a massacre that had to do with the Black township, the foundational reason why it happened was because of race. And that sensibility is now baked into our institutions, into our systems. And we know that not by because one group feels victimized or they feel debased or they feel like they want to play victim. It's because we have data and history to back that up. And it is unfortunate that we are here now and that we have to continuously debunk these insidious and silly talking points that we have coming from people who have been elected into their positions. Elected. I do believe that the superintendent was elected into his particular position. I don't necessarily think that he
Yes,
was
it's elected.
chosen.
It's an elected
In it,
position.
yeah. So Oklahoma partners, let me holler at you. You have some splaining to do, and you have some thinking to do about who you choose to represent yourselves. And I want to know anything else that you want to add, Aaron, to that whole.
Yeah, it doesn't have to be overt, violent racism to be a problem. There are really subtle ways that it affects us.
Yeah,
How can
microaggressions.
it not affect us? Our country was founded on the fact that black people count as 3/4 of a person.
Yeah, that's
That it
kind
was
of in the
okay to enslave
Constitution.
people.
Yeah,
How can it not affect you? Even though it was almost 200 years ago, it's going to affect you.
yeah.
And it's not, like I said, it's not always overtly. Like when Kodak, the maker of film for photography, they're you might have noticed if you were black and taking pictures with film, black people didn't look very good in pictures
Mm,
because all the reference people that they used in developing their film were white. and the
Mm,
white people look good, but the black people did. It wasn't nobody set out, to make it that way. It just kind of happened that way,
mm,
and it's those kind of subtle things, and that are also part of the problem. But of course, race is an issue in the United States. Yeah, and
Yeah, sad that people are
yes.
trying to erase their own history like this, and that ends up with people saying such ignorant lies and lying to everybody else out there listening to them. And these are people who are supposed to know what they are talking about, and they don't. It's extremely sad. The USA, I keep saying it, the USA scares me more and more every single day, and even more now that they are making sure that all children have the same amount of knowledge that this guy had when he made that comment. That is zero, no education at all, and that is
Yeah.
scary as hell.
Yeah, and I just wanted to just add to the to conversation, just to kind of just tie this all up in a bow, that there's still three survivors of the Tulsa massacre that are still alive today. They are in their 100s, and they recently tried to bring up a lawsuit in order for them to seek repair and reparations for what has happened to them because they were displaced as children, and the judge over that was presented with that particular case dismissed it.
Ugh. Why am I
This is
not
America.
surprised? Yep.
They're going to appeal, and I hope the appellate process will work. And if you guys want to work on listening to a little bit more of our content, click here.